Welcome to the webinar, Unlock Your User Secrets Faster. Ian and me, we partnered in this webinar. I'm happy to see that, to talk about user psychology and artificial intelligence and how you can use it to improve your user testing. Ian, you want to say a couple of words about yourself?
Yeah, sure, Fabian. Thank you for the warm welcome, everyone. It's great to see a few of you in the chat on this glorious Friday morning here in Austria. So yeah, I'm really delighted to be here today. I think we've got a really good presentation between us, and yes, it's great to see so many of you join us today. So thanks very much.
Ian is from UserBrain. I'm from Cognitier. My part is the psychology part. I have a master in psychology, and psychology is basically my everyday bread. What I'm doing every day is analyzing websites, consulting clients to improve their website user experience, and of course, we are also using UserBrain. I'm a big fan of the tool, I have to say. Super simple to use and gives you a lot of insights. So let's jump right into it. Maybe if you have any questions, just feel free, post it in the chat, and then we can answer them later on. All right, let's go. We want to talk about psychology and AI today, right? From my point of view, it's really important in the first place to think about the customer. Of course, it's all about the customer, right? We all know that. I know we have a lot of experts who signed up for this webinar, and I think it's common sense that we want to focus on the customer. But I will also point out later on some things, especially us as an expert, also some traps I step into once in a while, where I have to, I would say, pay awareness to my own mental setup, to my own beliefs, and to my own setup, so I don't stumble into these traps and get the right insights. In the end of the day, we have a user-centered process. User centricity basically describes the process of working with your users on a better product, etc. I think you all know that. One buzzword that is like driving me around lately is this word customer or user empathy, which actually means is that with everything you do, of course, you put the customer in the center of everything, but you really try to understand the emotions and the feelings. And then also translate it from there into your doings. Customer empathy means basically, or what I'm always trying to preach is that my clients or we are not our clients. So it's really hard to give this 100% or to create this 100% of true empathy. That means, imagine you're working in a company and you want to buy your own product. In-house, or when you work on a project, you have a lot of information about the product. You have a lot of hypotheses about the product. You have a lot of ideas for the product. And if you would go through your own process, of course, you see things that have been coined by your own perspective. And that also means that you basically not seeing what the customer will see. You're going into the checkout or you're going into a product and you might see, hey, this is a mistake here and this is a mistake here. This is wrong communicated there. A customer, they have different questions. They have different mental models because they have different informations about the product. So in the end of the day, that's of course what we want to understand with the process, the customer centricity process. But to have this real customer empathy, we are quite limited. But we can use psychology to get there. And that's what I want to show you today. Some, biases, etc. Some, of course, also UX design rules and best practices that I use to understand the customers, but to understand the customers, how they see it, and that help me to leave my own perception and therefore also my own opinion. And in the end of the day, we want to learn. I think that's all what it's about. User experience is about learning. So what does it mean actually to create or to unlock your user secrets? We were talking about user secrets already in the webinar title, but user secrets, those are actually the actionable insights. And what does it mean to have an actionable insight? how I was asking a lot of people, how do you know you have a good insight that you can actually build up on? Some people say, yeah, it's unique, it's unexpected, it surprises me, I learned something new, it's an insight. But for me, one of my, I would say, most important check marks I do before I say it's a good insight is it has a call to action insight. So if I read an insight or found an insight that I understand that it has a call to action, that we have to do something about it, that we have a problem behind it, and we have basically kind of a solution already given. Of course, it's new and unexpected. It has an emotional resonance. And yeah, in the end of the day, an actionable insight, it makes a difference. But the question is, how do we get there, right? How do we get there? We use tools like Userbrain, we use Hotjar, we use other methods. We have to combine different methods, yeah, and we have to ask the customer. This is basically what we're here for. But then we know, we all know that people will not tell us the truth, yeah. We also know that if someone comes up to us and asks us, hey, how do you like my shirt? And we are not telling them that we don't like it. Yeah, we still have our social norms tell us that we will be nice to them, frame it in a positive way. Even feedback is usually given in a positive way. But we have to think about how we ask the questions. Henry Ford already said, if he would ask the people what they actually wanted, they would have said faster horses, because the idea of the car doesn't exist yet. Steve Jobs said, on the other hand side, that people basically don't know what they want. You have to show it to them. Both are true statements, I would say, and I think we all know that. But in Steve Jobs' case, I also totally agree with him, but I also say, hey, would go one step farther. If you show people what you believe what they want, or what they should need, or what they should use, they would even tell you, hey, this is not good, we don't like it, we don't understand it. And again, there are a lot of things that come out. So on the one hand side, people tend to not tell you the negative things right away into your face, yeah, in a one-on-one situation. They're not telling you right away up to your face, hey, I don't like this or that, because they want to be nice to you. On the other hand side, they also really into the negative side and say sometimes really easy negative things, because the negative sticks out really easy to them. Sticks out, the negative is more obvious to them than the positive. So yeah, what is actually what's actually happening there? On the one hand side, they don't really say negative things what they want to say, and then don't say the positive things what they want to say. Yeah, and then we are in between, basically, in our research. We need to find out what is actually positive and what is negative. So long story short, we need to read between the lines. Yeah, since customers don't tell us directly, either negative or positive, it could always still be in another way, other meaning. People have a hard problem to cheer for something. Yeah, it's really hard to convince someone in a way that they're going to be like, hey, I love this product so much, I will recommend it to everyone. But on the other hand side, again, negative things overwhelm them. And so how can we actually read between the lines? Now, if we do user research, if we talk to the customers, we need to uncode their user secrets, what they're actually trying to say, or what is actually the useful insight for us. I literally had people that told us it's a great product, but if you look at them, the way they said it, what they actually said and what they pointed out, we knew this is half of the truth. And it depends on the method you're using, but sometimes in an unguided interview, you will see some comments that the users tell you, and I hope today we can give you a little bit more insight to unlock your user secrets. But yeah, it's all about reading between the lines and reading the customers and what the customers say and what they do. It already starts basically when you start doing the concept for your user research. We all sit down, we define problems that we want to tackle. We also, of course, here we're thinking user-centered. We want to define really what is the question we want to answer in the survey or in the user research. But for that, again, true customer empathy is important to really understand or maybe already anticipate a little bit what customers might do or what they not do. We will talk also about later on about a little bit more about screening questions, etc. But to plan your user survey, it's really important. And the first step where I always start is basically to, of course, define the problem you want to tackle with your research, and then really think about where are we in the customer journey. That means the customer journey, we're all aware of that concept, but what devices are they using in that situation? What information might they actually have? What kind of questions are really relevant at that point? And how can we actually create a survey that tackles the question? We all know that as well, that when we create a user survey, we're creating a hypothetical problem, for the customers, a hypothetical situation. And we want to bring the survey as close as possible to the actual situation we want to answer. If we test our product in a lab, it will be successful in lab situations, in lab conditions. But if we bring it into the real environment, it might fail because there are variables we haven't considered. So it's really important here to think about how we can do the user survey, how to set it up, etc., understand the needs, the problems, the motivations, and also the sub-goals of the customers at that point of the customer journey to come up with a good survey for your customers. And then, of course, you create your screener. Here's one thing which I just experienced a couple of days ago. It really depends on who you asked, right? Your problem defines also who you asked. If you asked a loyal fan, a loyal fan of your brand, of your product, they will always love you. That you can create something really, really bad in your UX. If they might even not understand it, but they say, hey, I love the brand. So first of all, maybe you should not show the brand, but if you recruit through your own panel or through your own customers, they're more likely to say, hey, I love it. I already love it that you asked me. And as soon they find out, or as soon you find out or you see this kind of behavior in your research, you might be questioning, or you might want to, again, read between the lines and look a little bit deeper what is actually the customer's motivation, and see if it's coming from your own panel that you have this loyal fan. Best case is, of course, you have a neutral customer, a neutral users who is, in the best case, aware of the problem or has the problem. So you bring him as close as possible to your survey questions, so he can find pros and cons. Someone who is also open to say pros and cons. But if you have a hater in your product that has already had a bad experience with your brand, with your product, then he will always give you really bad feedback, even if you have great features in there. So it's really up to us to pay attention when we analyze first of all, to how to set up the screener, right? And also when you analyze or observe the user research, the answers of the customers, that you actually go into and try to state or trying to find out what segment is this customer actually in. No one gives you 100% positive feedback, but even someone who gives you 80% positive feedback might be a love fan. If he gives you 90% negative feedback, you might consider him as a hater. So really important how to read between the lines. This is something I would say super simple, which I learned in 10th grade in school, but it still helps you. It's the 4 sides of a message. When someone is talking to you, there's always an informational message in there, a relationship message in there, a self-statement and an appeal. So consider that as a super, for me, I was like, okay, it's 10th grade, but it's super valuable. I think it helps a lot in life to actually pay attention to the 4 sides of a message when someone says something, to actually pay attention even on the relationship message to find out where the customer stands, and then might even test your test, right? I hope everyone is doing that you test your test before you start your test, because then you actually see if your test is working, or if you have any traps in there where the customer is actually stumbling. What I also observed is user psychology meets UX design, as means we all know, I would say, these nudges, these psychological heuristics, paradox of choice, scarcity. These are things that I would say well known in the UX space. But what I observed is that customers actually point out negative feedback about them. Yeah. So what I learned is, they might point out negative feedback on, okay, let's say for instance, they don't like the nudges or the messages that is a famous product, or they don't like that is bought in frequent times, or they don't like the sticky filter. But then if you test it later on in an A/B test, you actually find out, hey, it's this one person's opinion that the sticky filter doesn't work, but for 50% in my A/B test, it actually works better. So it really depends. What I would say is that in my experience, this nudges or these UX laws, sometimes customers gave me negative feedback on it, but then in A/B tests, actually they perform positive. So they might be disturbing, but they work better later on. And I think this is something really important to consider when you observe your customers and analyze the feedback of your customers, that sometimes UX laws and psychology goes over personal opinion, because psychology, these nudges, for instance, I would say customers don't know what's actually happening there. Sometimes they don't even realize, or they don't understand what's actually behind it. And I'm not saying we have stupid customers, but psychology is something that's that goes on in a deep mind, and no one can really put it in words. And the magic happens somewhere else, and they might not even able to see what's there. So always later on even test it. Again, I would say methods like UserBrain, they're made for creating good hypotheses in a really quick way, based on user feedback, but don't take it literally. Also one thing is the perception. How does our perception work? It always works in a context. So we look at things. If I would just see one person, I might not have an opinion, but the headline, the wordings, the frame, the colors, all that gives a context. And customers tend to actually, I would say, give feedback on the context than actually elements. If they give feedback on an element, we have to translate that into a context. That means, let's say, for instance, the customer doesn't like this element here on the bottom. Then he has seen the headline before, he has seen the person before, and he might have created a context. And this context can make this one element not being liked by the customers. So we can now, in the next steps, go into alliteration and change this one element here, but also consider that it's actually about what the customer has seen before and what they have perceived before, and what they're thinking about the element is related to the rest of the page. So this might be the symptom actually, but the problem might be somewhere else on the website. Yeah. And I find this is one of my biggest learnings. Like, they give you a direct feedback on one element, but the problem is actually laying somewhere else on the entire context. So you have to reconsider the entire concept. Colors. I don't know if you guys notice website. I use this in several webinars already. Linkscast is one of my favorite websites. It shows you a lot, actually. It shows you, if you go to linkscast.com, you see a lot of movement. You see the faces moving. Here's movement. Yeah, there are a lot of things going on the website, and it's actually, I hear it's performing well. But if you know what's actually grabbing attention, because you have a lot of things that grab attention here and you don't know where to look, the most, again, it goes a little bit in relation with this slide here. What you see first creates the perception of what you see afterwards. And if you see faces first, then you see the headlines afterwards, for instance, and contrast and movements grab the attention. So if you know that already, that customers might have seen something else before they give you feedback on something else, that is something you should definitely consider. If you already know, okay, this element is probably really attention grabbing, that this will definitely influence. It might not directly that element, how they give you feedback, but they will give you feedback on something else. But you have to understand, again, the entire concept of the website and consider these elements. Yeah, and in the end of the day, I think for us to understand all these things is really important, because we need to give reasons to what the customer is telling us in their feedback. We can, of course, take them literally, write down what they have said and say, hey, this is negative, but we need to give the reasons behind what they actually say. Also, again, some laws of design. Also here, this can influence how customers will give us feedback. How context is created is how elements are designed. And if things are close to each other, for instance, they seem to belong together, and then it might not make sense for the customer. And then it's actually, yeah, it's the entire concept again here. One example, just read it. And I think we all know this, and we all know why. And the customer, when they go on our product, on our digital product, on our website, on our app, they have the same perspective. They read things first, then other things after, and etc. And this will cause how they interfere with the whole product. We know why this is working, because one is bigger, the other one, and it makes sense, etc. But the customer doesn't know why this is actually working. And for us, it's always important to give the reasons why things, or why the customer gave us this feedback, right? Yeah, super important. Okay. Is actually to understand also the decision-making process. If you evaluate your UX research, then you need to see, like, or monitor if the customer slows down in their behavior and their action, then it's usually a signal that they trying to understand something, because to understand something takes more time than to recognize and remember. Also, something experts here, conversion rate or UX experts knows, you want to use elements that the customer can recognize. But if you see customer that actually slows down, he might have a high cognitive load, and he cannot make a decision where to click next and what to do next. So you want to see if he's actually recognizing, if he's flowing things are flowing for him, or does he need to understand things? Then he slows down. If he slows down, then yeah, he's thinking about something and evaluating something. So what I usually do is I write down what the customer actually says, literally. Yeah. Then I write down some, I would say, non-verbal signals. For instance, customers slow down while clicking on element or while looking at element. And then also, like, tone of voice, for instance. Does he say it in a positive way or in a negative way, etc., to get his emotional insight there. Social desirability. That's also, I would say, a known concept which we consider when we create a survey, but this is about, I would say, your opinion and your customer's opinion. On the one hand side, you have your customer's opinion and you have your own opinion. The customer is affected by this concept, but also us as a researcher, we are affected by this concept. That means if we find out something that proves us right, we're more likely to believe it. That means one customer tells us, hey, I find this great, for instance, then we're like, hey, I knew it. I knew it from the beginning that this is right. I also see that in A/B test a lot. When we do a positive A/B test and the person who had the idea, they cheering themselves because it's their own opinion. Or if this is CEO opinion, then everyone is like, yeah, CEO was right, etc. So we have a public opinion also inside the company, but we have a public opinion, which means like our society, and our customers are more affected by our society, and we are also affected by the opinion inside the company. And we need to separate that. We need to know how are we as a researcher actually affected by the company's opinion. And we also need to understand how is the user affected by the public opinion. And then the answer lies in between. If we have the feeling that the customer gives us an answer which is based on the public opinion, then we probably should rethink what he actually said. If we find a finding which is relating to what we actually believe, then we should also ask ourselves, why do we actually find the customer right? Yeah. Self-confirmation bias is similar, but it's more like about what we believe in the facts, in the evidence, or in our beliefs, in our own beliefs. The own beliefs are basically, our own beliefs are, I would say, again, we are more likely to believe facts which are in our evidence and our which we believe in. Those facts we are believing. Overconfidence. This is something I really have to. Me as an expert, I would say, have to be aware of. Like, overconfidence means that we, as a person, we usually have beliefs in ourselves, right? And we usually think that we can do more what we actually can do. And the other hand side, our actually abilities, they are smaller than what we can do. We can use that in research to give the customer feedback of, hey, you are an expert, for instance, give us your expert opinion. I used it sometimes in research to get them talking, because they get into this overconfidence feeling. But also for me, it causes errors. I've seen many researchers, I have seen many insights, for instance, and like what I see is someone is saying one thing and I'm right away, hey, I knew it, I'm the expert, this person is telling me what I know, what I believe in, so I get this overconfidence really quickly. And then I have to take a step back and actually think about it. Is this something which is actually the truth? Yeah. So this is the next thing, actually. It's the fundamental attribution error. That means that people are more likely to attribute positive things or in general things to themselves instead of the situation. And it has to do something with overconfidence. I literally had a situation where a customer told us, hey, I'm great. I was able to do this. And I was like, okay, you are great. You're attributing the success to yourself, but the situation was challenging. And to evaluate the product, we actually want to understand the product, right? So the product was quite bad, but for him, it was a great success and he knew it, that he can do it. So therefore, always for overconfidence has something to do how we attribute success or dissuccess. It's more likely to be attributed to the situation, but in our case, we need to also pay attention to the situation and the product, what that actually causes to the customer. Yeah, the status quo bias. I think this is something which makes me tick when I think about Steve Jobs, who said, you have to give people something they actually like. And yeah, they won't like it because they like what they already know. They like what they already have done before. And if they have to do something different in the future, they're more likely to not like it. And yeah, we have to think about it when we do our surveys, for instance, that the customer is really more likely to like the positive, to like the status quo. For instance, if you do a website, if you do a website relaunch and you ask your loyal customers, how do you like the new website? They're more likely to like the website that they already know because they know it already. And yeah, this bias actually gives them the I would say the permission to do so. But we have to consider that, of course. And yeah, this is also one of my favorite things. Again, I said it several times. All these biases, I would say, they kind of point out into the same direction. Don't trust one answer and don't like attribute this one finding to the entire mass and take it for granted and say, for one person who told you something, just because you might have believed it in the beginning, or they basically confirmed your belief, that you have a finding, then you can attribute into the entire mass, and to attribute this finding for everyone and say we have the golden nugget just because one person said it and you have believing this in the beginning. You have to do a lot of work to actually find these golden nuggets and say this is something you can use for everyone or generalize it. Yes. So, Ian.
Yeah, thanks, Fabian. So I would say that's most of the meat in the sandwich of our presentation. So a lot of different psychological things to digest there. So don't worry, it doesn't get any more difficult now. So excuse me, I'm from Userbrain, as you know. So I just wanted to give you a little quick overview of what Userbrain does if you're not already familiar. So yeah, Userbrain is an unmoderated user testing tool, over 100,000 testers, and every single one is quality assured. We put them through a test when they sign up, and only if they pass the test are they permitted to join our testing pool. So as you can imagine, our customer support team are delighted to have to review so many videos every day. We've recently launched a few AI features, which I'm really looking forward to showing you today. And yeah, we have some other new features such as reports, which you can use to collaborate with your team, and also some transcripts as well, which is also an AI-based solution. So yeah, if we can just move on to the next slide, there's a couple of things I want to talk about before we head into our product demo.
One second.
Okay, small technical hitch. But yeah, as I said, this is a little bit lighter than Fabian's side of things. So don't worry, you can take a breath and digest all of the user psychology information. Just one little thing, I guess, from the psychology point of view is the Hawthorne effect. So that's something you should be aware of. So the easiest way I can kind of explain this is that it affects your own users if they're testing your product, and it also affects testers from a pool like Userbrains or any other testing tool that you might use. So the best way to describe it is if you can remember back to maybe your days at school when you had a really strict teacher who would watch over you while you did a test or something like that, or when you started your first job and you had a manager that was a bit skeptical of your abilities or something like that, and they would always sort of watch over you a bit. So if your boss or your teacher was sitting next to you the entire day, observing how you work, you know, you're probably going to be a little bit more eager to impress. And I guess that psychological shift in your thinking is what we call the Hawthorne effect. So in a user testing scenario, even in remote, unmoderated user testing scenarios such as Userbrain test, testers and users as well, if you're testing with your own users, they know that they're part of a study. So they know that their actions and their feedback could influence your product. So they're kind of a little bit on edge. So that's just one thing that I would say to kind of be aware of while you're doing user testing. Just keep that in mind, that you need to take the feedback sometimes with a little grain of salt. So yeah, just onto the next slide. Yeah, so again, we've got a situation of testing with your own users or testing with testers from a pool such as Userbrains or another tool. So yeah, your users are going to be to some extent invested in the outcome of the test. So remember what Fabian was saying, if they're loyal fans, if they're your haters or neutral users, they are still your users, and there's a reason why they're using your product. They'll still have specific goals or problems that they're looking to solve with your product. So to some extent, they are invested in its success. Also consider the learning curve. So your users, they're going to have more time to overcome usability issues because they probably found your product in an organic way, either through word of mouth or through ads or through search or whoever it is that they came across your product or service. Just remember that for most testers from Userbrain, for example, it's probably the first time that they've seen your product, and they might not even be from your exact target audience. So they're thrown in at the deep end. And also, a user test typically lasts between 5 and 20 minutes, depending on how long you make it, obviously. So really, there's a very short window for testers to evaluate your product. Obviously, that leads to different pros and cons. And then there's subjective biases as well, which Fabian also touched on. Users can be really easily influenced by brand perception, past experiences, and other biases. And that could make them overlook faults, or they could be overly critical if they're a hater of your product or your brand. On the other hand, testers don't really have an emotional connection to your product or service. So that's also just something to keep in mind. It's probably the first time they've ever seen it. And that can make the feedback from a tester more objective, but it also kind of means that they'll probably overlook some emotional design elements that could resonate with your actual users. So again, just a couple of little pros and cons just to keep in mind. There's no right or wrong when it comes to testing with users and testers. That's why at Userbrain we allow both. But it's just something to keep in mind. And then again, we've got the idea of users having an organic discovery process versus testers having a task-oriented mindset. So your users are more likely when they sign up because they're not part of a study. They're signing up because there's something about your product that interests them. There's something that's led them there, some problem they're looking to solve. These users they're more likely to stumble upon features in sort of unorthodox ways. Maybe ways that you as the UX designer did not intend them to discover these features. So testers are basically doing their best to follow the instructions. And just remember that testers are usually paid. Certainly at Userbrain, all of our tests are paid. So you're paying for their time basically, and their time and effort to follow the tasks. So your testers are more likely to follow your instructions step by step, because they're trying to do a good job. Whereas your users, there isn't so much of an incentive there, apart from to solve their problem. So your users are really just doing their best to try and get to where they need to go, whereas the testers will listen to you or read your instructions in much greater detail. Yeah, so that's also the same as well if you test with your own users as part of a user testing study. It's likely that you are rewarding your testers, I don't know, with some kind of gift voucher or some kind of additional element of your product for free, maybe a package upgrade or something like that as a thank you for participating in your study. And Then again, there's word of mouth impact, sorry, as well. So, satisfied or dissatisfied users are likely to share their opinions within their social circles. Something that the testers won't do, again, because they've not got that level of investment. They're not paying for your product. And yeah, you see that on these review websites quite a lot. Disgruntled users of your product, or maybe even the super fans, the loyal fans, commenting how great everything is. So just something to keep in mind. And yeah, long-term interaction is the last point I've put there. So your users will provide feedback on how their product fits into their needs and their lives over time, which is valuable for understanding how their perceptions may change over the course of time. But just remember again that your testers are literally coming in there first thing, and that's sort of their first impressions, I see. So just something to keep in mind. And I think now we should be ready to head on over to the demo. So I'll just share my screen. If I can do that, let me just see. Okay, so is that working now? Perfect. I'll just zoom in a little bit. I've got it on the second screen here, so I'm just checking to see if everything's coming through okay and everyone can read that. Yeah, so as you can see, this is a sort of a behind the scenes, behind the curtain look into the Userbrain dashboard. And this is a test that I've created earlier for Porsche. So you all know what Porsche do. They make very nice cars. So this test here is one that I ordered earlier. And I'll just click on here, play video. And I'm not going to make you watch the whole video, don't worry. But yeah, so I'll have to zoom out a little bit just so everything fits in the screen. So apologies if it's a bit hard to read now. But this is what a Userbrain test looks like when you first receive it. And as you'll see, we can rate the tester here. We can see the demographics of the tester. The tester's first name, age, which country they come from. They're using a desktop, Chrome, and when it was done today. So it was done approximately just under an hour ago. I ordered this test. Maybe just gives you a little idea about what we try and achieve with Userbrain in terms of the speed. So yeah, you can really get great insights within an hour. And I'll just touch on our AI features now and how that kind of integrates with the idea of speed as well. So our transcripts are automatically generated. So that's a speech-to-text transcript of the whole video. So that's there. So if you're maybe watching a particular part of the video,
Canyon Core, and
the tester says something that you think was quite interesting, as you can see the transcript on the right-hand side will go along at the same speed as the video. So what you can do is you can say, oh, that was particularly interesting. I want to share that with my team. I want to share that with stakeholders. You can just copy that out and paste it into a presentation or whatever it might be. So that's the transcripts. That's our first AI feature. And the second one is really again, I'll use the analogy of the meat in the sandwich. So as you can see with this Porsche test, we have 22 test videos in this project. Now, if each video is an average of 14 minutes, like this one from Julius here, then as a UX researcher or whoever you might be with that responsibility of watching the test videos, that's going to take you a hell of a long time to watch 22 videos in full and stop them and write notes and everything like that. So what you can do here is you can click Generate AI Insights. And what this does is our system analyzes the whole speech-to-text transcript and comes up with insights. And they're all tagged with different hashtags. So we've got user behavior, user confusion, suggestion, positive feedback, a key takeaway, unexpected interaction, and usability issue. So yeah, as you can tell, that was done in like a matter of 5 seconds. And now what we have is, I would call these a selection of chronological hooks. So as you can see, they're in chronological order. And if I see something very interesting, like this key takeaway here, a key takeaway from Julius's user test is that the values to the usability, blah, blah, blah. I can then click here and the video will start from that timestamp. And maybe the timestamp I think is slightly off. I can go in here and I can say, oh, well, actually that starts from 8 minutes. And I can edit that there.
Similar, yes.
I can also click on the pen icon here and I can change whatever I want. I can then save it. Just to maybe just put it in my own words or easier to understand language. And if I so wish, if I think actually the AI is not quite 100% accurate, I can delete that there. So immediately what we've done is we've basically saved ourselves from having to watch the first 2 minutes of the video, because we know that from 0 minutes until 2 minutes, there's not really any sort of user insight there. And then what we've done as well is we've created these hooks so we can go through it chronologically. I would still recommend testing with smaller rounds of maybe 5 to 10 testers, because then you will have time to watch all of the videos, which is I would say still by far the most important thing that you can do. Because remember, if you're the product manager or the UX researcher or the designer, then you are the expert. It's your product that you're responsible for, and you will spot a lot of things that the AI won't spot. It's not perfect, obviously, but as I said, it's a nice way to get into the videos. So yeah, I think that really covers the AI insights and the transcripts. One more thing is obviously a feature we've had for quite a long time. You can add your own notes in here, and that's all timestamped, so it's automatic there. And then really the benefit of the AI insights and notes is that when you go to your report, you can see all of your AI insights marked with this little magic wand icon here. And you can see all of your own notes as well, and all of the notes from your team. So everything is contained in one sort of nice report. And to share that, all you would do is copy the link there, and then you can send it to your stakeholders, to your team. But yeah, as Giuseppe says in the chat there, I completely agree. It's always worth watching the whole video. But I think where the AI comes in is, if you have a bigger project, 15, 20 videos for whatever reason, like this Porsche test here, where we have 22 different videos, then it kind of gives you these hooks to get into the videos, and you'll see that some videos will appear to be more interesting than others based on the AI feedback. So again, you don't have to use it. It's not like a compulsory thing. It's completely optional, but it is there if you are a little bit tight on time. And I'll just show you just how this test was set up as well. So we've used our demographic questions here. So we've just asked for users with computers just from the USA. We did have an age range before, but the last test was not done with that. And we've added a screener question. UserBrain allows you to add 2 screener questions, either a single choice or a multiple choice. So which of the following things do you own? So what we really want is someone that owns a car. We've ignored all the others except the Bolt, because I like to put something in there that's a little bit out there, just so we don't get any testers that think they're trying to be smart by gaming the system by clicking yes, I own all of these. So that's just something there. And we can also add another question if we want to go a little step deeper there. So yeah, that's really all there was to it. You can also bring your own testers, as I was saying, to test with your own users. You can enable the invite link here. So I'll copy that link and I'll just put it in the chat. So you can see it's actually a real test. If anyone's interested in doing that, you're more than welcome to. I'll leave it open if you want to see UserBrain from a tester perspective. You have a bit of free time. But yeah, that's really how it works. So now we can place our order here, and this is what it will look like. So we're looking, it's a little bit strict because of the time of day, so not that many people are awake in America right now. But yeah, we've ordered one tester from the USA. There's a screener question they have to complete, and it's on the computer. But as I said, with Julia's test here, you know, we got his video back, everything uploaded, all the insights within about an hour. So yeah, so that was actually quite nice to see, even at such an early time of the morning for America. So yeah, I guess that really concludes the UserBrain demo. I hope that was interesting to see how we've kind of implemented these sort of AI insights and AI notes, as well as the transcript. Obviously, I'm not here to shill UserBrain, but you're more than welcome to try it out for yourself. We do offer 2 testers for free when you sign up, and yeah, there's a little QR code on the presentation there. If you would like to get out your phone and you want to give UserBrain a little free trial for your product, you're more than welcome to. There's no credit card required. I'll just reply to Martin's question to see which languages are supported. So the main languages we support are English, German, and Spanish. They are the 3 that we can guarantee 24/7 support for. If you were looking for something other than that, you know, feel free to get in contact with us, and you know, we can try and sort something out for you. But we don't like to overpromise and underdeliver, so that's really why we just say English, German, Spanish, because they're the ones that we can guarantee from our tester pool. So yeah, claim 2 free testers. You're more than welcome to. There's no credit card required, and you can just see if UserBrain's maybe something that you'd like to use for your product. Yeah, so thanks very much, Fabian. I think that's it from me.